ครับคุณอาสาดรครับ
ดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับ Hi everybody.
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
สวัสดีครับท่านอาจารย์
สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์
Does anyone have anything to start with here?
คุณแอนคุณไซร่าคุณเจอริทัน
At the end of the discussion last weekend, we were suddenly a bit short of time. You just
Yes.
brought up your concerns about memory and forgetfulness issues and what in medical terms is referred to as medical conditions and cognitive skills.
Mhm.
And Ajahn was talking about the asavas and what is the truth now. And I just made a note that I don't think we quite finished the discussion. I don't know if there's anything further you would like to mention on this topic.
It's interesting. I've been emailing back and forth with Bev a bit this week. I don't know whether they'll be here, but they can listen, I guess, afterwards. And she was mentioning she has a friend who is slowly declining into dementia. And her question was, just a minute. Here we are. This dementia is caused by Parkinson's, which for our purposes, I don't think makes any difference. And she says, in cases where there is a lapse of memory, it appears as if sanya is weak, does not function. And from last week, we were talking about how sanya is there at every moment. And in cases where we're thinking it is weak or does not function, that's a conventional way of looking at the conditions are not there for particular memories at particular kinds. One can't just will to have a memory, nor can one conclude because there's confusion or not remembering that memory is not working, because sanya is there working all the time.
Well, I would say something isn't working as it normally does.
That's true.
But whether it's sanya or whether it's thinking and processing is another question. And I think if it is said that sanya arises with every moment of consciousness, it's not really possible to talk about something arising but not functioning, not performing its function, because that is
right.
anathema. If it
Right.
arises, it's performing its function.
Right.
So I don't think we need to try and speculate what it is in the sense that is it this mental factor or that mental factor, but certainly what is not happening. See, the function of sanya is to mark the object so that it can be remembered.
Right.
Now, recall is something different, as I understand it. Recalling something from the past, like a name or a label, it certainly will involve sanya, but it also involves a lot of mental processing, as I understand it. And I think it's in that area that things are not functioning as they used to.
Yeah, thank you. That's making a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think that's what well, I can only speak from my own experience, but that's what the difficulty is. It's well, it's for the self. The self wishes it to be as before, as remembered as before. But it can't be. And I would think for dementia, well, one is still conscious of the fact that there is a decline. That would also be the same thing, very difficult.
Well, I think everyone has the experience, regardless of whether they're declining cognitively or not, of not being able to remember things that they would expect to be able to remember, like names and places and events and so on and so forth. So it's a normal phenomenon, but there are degrees of this phenomenon, of course, and when it gets to a certain stage, then we tend to call it an abnormality.
Yeah.
But that's also a subjective thing. So when it happens, I don't think there's much to be gained by trying to figure out the hows and the whys of it, because again, the task is to have a better understanding of what is appearing at the present moment. And there are still realities appearing and able to be capable of being known and understood, even though life has become more difficult. But I'm sure Ajahn will.
That's very true.
Would like to add something here.
I think that what is there now is not understood yet. And we try to think about other things. But the best thing is to understand that how much ignorance about what is there in each moment. To be reminded that it's so very subtle and very deep, even if there, it cannot be known as it is. That's why I listen carefully about how much ignorance about everything in life is there. And the way to have a little understanding is to listen carefully to understand the word about that which is there, instead of thinking about other things. For example, right now, what is there is not known, right, as it is. If someone asks, what is that? What's the answer? Can it be just seeing or thinking? But the nature of that, what is seeing again and what is thinking again, just saying that it's seeing and it's thinking, it doesn't bring about any understanding of the truth of what is there deeply enough to let go the idea of self, which clings to everything, no matter that which is seen or the seeing, that which is heard or hearing and so on. That's why understanding how much accumulation of ignorance and attachment and all akusala are there from moment to moment, continuous, on and on and on, keep on, added more and more. And what about understanding the truth, the absolute truth of that which is now appearing? Because it's so deep that no one can understand its truth. Just say about it like seeing is a reality. Yes, it is a reality, but what reality is it? Because if we say that everything which is real is a reality, but it is different from one to another all the time and never be the same at all, only once in samsara. Just understanding this until it's so firm enough, Thira Sanya, mark and remember the word which is there represent that reality, which is there as a reality. What is meant by a reality? No one and no thing. To understand more about the truth of each word, a reality means no one and no thing. So what says when there's no understanding of that reality which arises and experience an object? This is to begin to get to go deeper, to do deeper, a little bit deeper, to understand the truth of what has been heard as that is a reality, and that reality can experience, and it now experiencing an object. And what object is there? Not as it is at all. So very short, very tiny, very little, because it's only that which it can impinge on the eye base. And what can impinge on the eye base has to be so very little, not the whole world or the whole table or the bed or the chair at all. So in truth, to begin to understand the meaning of no one and no thing at all is that it's only that which is seen. Just that it takes quite a long time to let go the moment of seeing, to understand the truth, to let go the idea of something about it as things, people, and whatever it is. Just that little by little, even right now, it takes quite a long time according to the accumulation of ignorance, not understanding it as it is up until now. So it takes parami, patience, to know that the truth is so very subtle, and it's any time, any moment, what is there can be known little by little to understand what is there gradually. For example, memory or sanya. What is that? See, it's there. And even it's known with sanya, marks and remember the sound and the meaning and the thinking about it as it. See, that's why I just learned about the absolute realities of what we take for world and people and things from life to life. Actually, no one at all. And that can be considered little by little to let go attachment to all conduct or everything which arises and appear as it's not there anymore. This is so true. That's why it let go the idea to do something or just want to understand this and that. But what about each word, about the truth of what is there now, to develop the understanding, so very firm confidence of the truth, that it's quite far away, even it's there so close, to understand the truth as it's not now anymore, no matter what. And this can be directly experienced when panya, right understanding, develops, and letting go what is there as something by understanding the true nature of just a reality at a time, on and on, again and again and again, by conditions. And this is the only way, the fourth noble truth, which is so very subtle, because right now, at moment of understanding the truth of it, that it's there, but its nature is not yet known as it is, but it's just the moment of experiencing. So the characteristic of the reality, which is now experiencing, whatever is there from moment to moment, cannot be known yet, because right understanding is not enough to understand it. It has to be only understanding of that which is now appearing, which can lead to the end, the enlightenment, the truth of what is there, as it's a reality which is conditioned, arising and falling. Not the story, but the characteristic which is there. For example, seeing right now, the characteristic of it, it sees, it has a reason by conditions, and it's gone. Each moment is so true. Each reality which is conditioned to arise and then gone, never to return again. Just listen from life to life, on and on, about that which is now appearing. And this is the letting go of ignorance and attachment to that, no matter it is sanya or what. It's there. We're talking about sanya, and sanya is now. But they do not, the sanya does not appear, but what appears should be known in order to understand sanya, when sanya is there. Only when sanya is there, by conditions to be the object of right understanding. When who knows, by conditions, no selection, no choice. Otherwise, it hides the truth again and again by attachment, clinging, wishing, wanting to experience this or that, or to understand that which is not now. But what about now? So even when that moment is there, sanya, any level, no understanding of it, because no understanding of the reality which experiences. Because no matter what we take for self, it is only that which arises and experience an object, and that which is conditioned by whatever appearing, and it cannot understand, and it can experience anything. And they are different, so how can there be any one? That which is now is taken from my leg or my head. Is it there appearing? When it's not seen, when it's not touched, when it's seen the shape and form, condition the idea of thing or something. And when it is touched, even it's now hard. What about the letting go of that which is the object of clinging or not any attention of it at all? As the truth that is there. There's nothing except that which is there. At moment of hardness appearing, in truth, nothing is there. Only that hardness and the reality which experiences it. Only two characteristics, that which experiences and that which cannot experience. In life, no matter where in the world, what world, anywhere, the truth is so true. To be truthful to the truth, to understand how much ignorance is there about now. And when right understanding begins to develop to understand the nature of that which is taken for I see, it's only that which arises to see. And this applies for any moment in life when right understanding is enough to be conditioned at any moment, to think about it, to consider it, to react what situation is there, and to understand the nature of it, little by little, by conditions. That's why the understanding of no one and no thing can develop on and on and on, little by little. At moment of understanding the characteristic of that which is now appearing. But when is there and no understanding of the truth of its characteristic as yourself, how can there be moment of letting go the idea of self from this and from that and on until whatever is there cannot be taken for someone or something at all, stage by stage. And this is the first stage, understanding clearer and more confident of the truth. That what can be known has to be what is there now. Sanya is there now, but it's not known yet until by conditions, understanding whatever is there. It can be sanya, or it can be loka, or it can be who knows when time hasn't come yet. By conditions. So the understanding of no thing and no self and no one is built up at moment of understanding the truth of that which experiences, not me, no one. It's their experiences and then gone, never to return at all. To understand life as it is and understand the truth that how much ignorance is there. So just hearing about the truth of what is there all around at any time, to be conditioned to paying attention, and then more with awareness, with right understanding, little by little about its truth. So now we're talking about just whatever is there from moment to moment. When it does not appear, there can be the understanding of the nature of it. so that when it appears, no doubt about it. Otherwise, what's that? So no matter what, the reality which experience an object has different characteristics. One likes, the other dislikes, one contact, the other fear, and so on. All in life, from moment to moment. And what is there? Kusala and akusala, wholesomeness or unwholesomeness, are added each moment for the next life or next moment. So now, at each moment, it's moment of walking to the whatever is there, which has been developed little by little from moment to moment now. When there's no right understanding, how can there be the expectation to understand what is there? Impossible. But from understanding of that which is now appearing, even each reality there cannot be known as it is. But the understanding of the truth of it, little by little, is the only way to let go of the idea of self. Like Sariputta, how many lives had been developed to the moment to be great disciple? No expectation at all, by conditions. So now our Dhammas are working their function, no one there at all. No matter what we talk about, sanya or feeling, or passa, or manasikara, the terms in Pali, but they are realities, have its own characteristics, and they arise to perform their function together with citta, the chief of experiencing an object which now appears because of citta, experiences it. And there are many, many factors arising, performing the function unknowingly. So we learn to understand that actually what we take for self or mind or whatever are only different realities arising together at a time, depending on what appears and what does not appear. For example, there is sanya, but it does not appear as the object, but it can be known. What is that? Even that is sanya. And that which experience does not mark or remember. It just experiences directly. So the object appears different, very clearly. Only that, because citta is the chief of experiences, its color, its what is seen. And this is life from moment to moment, from birth to death. And on, after death, there must be life again, like this life. If there is no moment of birth, how can there be this moment?
Yes, and I think like in this situation that Anne and Bev mentioned, we think the problem is the loss of memory or this or that, but actually it is the ignorance and the not understanding anything about reality now, because there's so much clinging to the self and thinking about this or that situation or loss of memory. And this conditions so much agitation and worry and upset, thinking on and on about the particular condition and just forgetting about what appears now, the thinking now, the seeing now, the agitation now. And it's a vicious cycle, because the more thinking and attachment and agitation and disturbance, the more difficulty, the more problems there are. But actually at moments of understanding, no matter what appears, no matter it's the fear, no matter it's the seeing, no matter it's the hearing, at those problems, no disturbance at all. So the attachment and the ignorance just takes one away from the present moment all the time, no matter the situation, no matter the medical condition, no matter the issue. Still, life comes back to this moment, and there can be understanding now, no matter what is remembered, no matter what is thought about.
Well put.
Sarah, would you say that the problem is of ignorance, attachment, and taking everything for self, and it's equal for everyone here, more or less?
Well, it's not for anyone, because in truth, this is the problem, that it's taken for self. It's taken for my ignorance or my attachment or my wrong view or my poor memory. But these are just dhammas arising and falling away. Moments of ignorance, moments of attachment, moments of kindness, moments of understanding. So even measuring or comparing or thinking my memory isn't as good as another, it's so unhelpful, because it's still just clinging to self again and again, instead of just understanding what appears now as Dhamma. So what's the use of thinking, well, my memory is worse than another, or this person has more understanding? It's not helpful at all. It's just thinking with ignorance, thinking with clinging again, thinking with wrong view, instead of just understanding, seeing now, kindness now,
Yeah.
thinking now, whatever appears at this moment.
Yeah, and the thinking, my memory is going downhill. It wasn't like it was before. It's changing, and exactly the way you put it before, Sarah.
Just torturing oneself with the strong clinging to
That's
self,
right,
and the
that's
idea
right.
of my memory, not understanding
Right.
what appears the reality now. And that torturing and dwelling just leads to looking for and pointing out the difficulties and the problems and being obsessed with
Exactly.
oneself. And this causes the worry and the agitation, instead of just letting it go.
And it's not helped. How do I put this? An added difficulty there is that the medical profession is constantly inquiring about it. But yes, I think it takes understanding to not fall into the trap you've just described.
And this is the confidence that develops with understanding, no matter whatever the doctor may say or anyone says. Actually, the problem is the not understanding right now, the clinging now, which conditions the worry now.
That's a big that's very true. Very true. Thank you.
I mean, the real problem is we have to understand what the real problem is as what Achan was saying earlier and what Sarah was referring to just now. And that the real doctor is what? The real medicine is what? So the real problem, the real doctor, the real medicine. I mean, the rest is not important.
Right. Well, the real problem is the not understanding, and the real doctor is the teachings of the Buddha, understanding them, right? This seems to be the problem with any sort of medical condition that arises that puts us into wondering and concern and everything else. It's really the problem of everything, isn't it?
Because it's my body, my brain, my mind, my difficulty, my cancer, my this, my that.
My cancer, my heart, my whatever. Yeah.
Right. And because of clinging, there's always something else, my bent finger, my whatever it is, my eye issue. But actually, what appears now is just thinking. It's just thinking and clinging and disturbance, and that thinking and that clinging, it just leads to more worry and more disturbance.
It's
so
a real
this is why
distraction. Yeah, it's a real
we can
distraction.
see all the problems come down to the thinking and the agitation, because
Yeah.
if the eyesight is poor or the finger is bent, but there's understanding now, it's just different dharmas by conditions that have to be the way they are, that's all. So
Mhm.
it's it's all the thinking about the situation, something that is the real issue.
Mhm. This is a helpful discussion. Thank you.
Tadao, do you have anything you would like to bring up today? It's good to see you back after your stay away.
Some
Are you
time
there,
ago,
Tadao?
I asked Kuzujin how I can develop metta. And now I know that it's a wrong question. My understanding, and before I never understood the relationship between panya and metta. I couldn't understand why the development of metta is emphasized in Buddhism. But now I can see that metta is not something which has to be developed. The more we see anatta in realities, metta arises naturally. Metta is an indication of understanding of non-self. When we understand non-self, metta arises naturally. We need not force us to develop metta. And I think this is the sort of a right attitude of viewing metta.
It's
So
metta.
you think that sorry. I was wondering if Tadao thinks that metta cannot arise naturally without wisdom. That metta needs wisdom in order to arise naturally.
Now, do we really understand what metta is? Or we just talk about that? A reality which is friendliness to whatever is there appearing as living or being. Can there be metta to just the tree, the flowers and things? Impossible. So what is really metta? At the moment when something is taken for someone, because usually life does not change at all, no matter how much I understand about realities, which hasn't been known before at all as it is. But nobody can change the conditions for anything to arise. For example, now, at moment of understanding or no understanding of that which is now appearing, there are conditions for whatever arises from moment to moment by conditions. So it's only thinking about it with expectation and about this and that. But the truth is that then it's no one and not anything at all at any time, no matter we talk about the doctor. But no one can stop the moment of thinking about disease and doctor and the medicine and so on by conditions. What is different is the understanding of the truth of what is there as very natural, like no understand of it after seeing and hearing. Instead of that, it's moment of understanding, beginning to learn about no one, which has been accumulated for years and years. So how can it be let go when there's no understanding at all? That's why no matter we're talking about metta, and one can be so metta, but no understanding of the truth of metta. It's not I, it's no one. It's by conditions. And why just about only metta? And what about metta in the natural through life. For example, at moment of something, at moment of experiencing that which is not pleasant at all, the quarrel or whatever is there, and so very unpleasant. Is there any metta? And what is metta? So we think about just metta in some situation. But what about everyday life? Seeing many, many people around. What about metta? What is that? Or thinking just about the other's fault and talk about that which is the blame for this and that person at all. Or there, what is metta? So metta is the reality, and it develops with right understanding as part of me. When there's more understanding, why do we don't help the others? Why we don't share or just give them times to do good deed and so on? And that's the way life is. With metta, not try to have metta or think that I'm having metta, but it's attachment to that which is not known at all. As what about moment of seeing some person, and what at moment of hearing something, and the smelling of someone and so on. See, it can be the object right then in the bus or whatever we can condition and pleasant smell. What about metta? And what about at moment of touching or helping the other, or eating, or if someone do unpleasant deeds or words? What about not having anger or to be angry to that one with that person? And where is metta? It's an understanding of metta, and that is not enough. It has to be metta is not I, the absolute truth. So no matter it's what, my condition, it's not I can do or I try to do, because without conditions, nothing can arise. So whatever arises, even you take it for I try or I do, it's by condition, for it's arising. And the conditions are very complicated, because not only one condition at all, which conditions such that reality to arise or to appear. That's why each word should understand its truth as no one, but the different realities have different characteristics. That's why can there be more metta to see someone doing something wrong, like killing, stealing, so on? Metta is not limited. It doesn't hurt at all. At that moment, it cleans up that which is cruel or what has been accumulated is opposite to metta. So metta is daily life at any time to anyone around. Speak nicely, say for them. And at that moment, citta is so soft or mild or tender that it cannot be cruel at all. So understand more about the truth, not just try to have this and that, but no understanding of that as the truth of no self at all. That's why lives go on and on. Even one has attained jhana, being born in such plane, but still have ignorance, no understanding of the truth. And who knows what would be next life? It's now, walking to that very moment of birth again, from the past up to now, to condition the way one walks to the end of this life. So the understanding of metta can condition more metta and understand at that very moment that it's not me at all. So whatever, it's not metta, but it's a reality by condition. right understanding has to be so strong enough to let go, no matter what, as it's just a conditioned reality, and no one can stop conditions at all. No matter going to see the doctor or what doctor said about it, by conditions. We're talking now by conditions. And even right now, there can be conditions for anything, thinking about, too, or doing about, moving one's hand and so on, or by conditions. That's why the life goes on as usual. No one can make anything arise at all. But at any time, whatever is there, the understanding is that so true that no one has made it arise at all. It's by condition right now. See, now, with talking and thinking, who conditions seeing and who can condition thinking? Different one, only once in samsara. But it conditioned the next one on and on and on, not so. Until right understanding is enough to understand without any doubt about what is that is not self, no matter what will be in life from this moment. So metta is one parami. Because of understanding, it cleans up that which is hatred or wrong wishes for the other, ill wish, and so on. Is this moment of metta, sharing one's thought, idea about what is the truth, and at moment of appreciate the others, is that not metta? See, metta can be any time in life. And when there's more understanding, it's more metta too.
And it's actually the opposite of what people think when they think about developing metta or following a metta practice or having more metta, because metta is about the letting go of the clinging to oneself, because it's about the needs and wishes of the others. And on the example you mentioned about the smell on the bus and cleaning up, it reminded me of an example which you will have forgotten. Ajahn, we were on a transit bus, I think it was in Vietnam, and we were sitting opposite a mother and her daughter, and the daughter suddenly vomited everywhere, big mess, and everyone else was moving away, but you just reached into your bag for some tissues and leaned forward to offer some assistance and just spoke very sweetly and kindly to the daughter, and while the mother helped clean up some of the mess. So this is metta when there are opportunities, when one's with others, when one's thinking of the needs of others, nothing to do with having metta for oneself or trying to be the kind person, but just reaching out and sharing and cleaning up the kilesa at that moment.
Very good memory, Kunsan.
I remember because it impressed me so much at the time, because my first reaction was like the other people in the bus to just move away, but I was sitting next to you, so I just stayed put and was so impressed by the kind way you helped the girl, and even though you had nothing to clean up the mess, but just offering a few tissues and just speaking kindly and being friendly instead of having aversion because of the smell and the mess, but just having kindness at those moments. This is metta, anytime, any place, as you say. And it's always been all these examples we can learn from and appreciate so much.
And do you think, Sarah, that time, that what we are calling metta, like in that example, can it arise naturally without any knowledge of the Buddha's teaching?
Oh, but this is back to your point, because some people we know, even with no interest in the Buddha's teachings, no understanding, naturally are very kind and naturally will help those around in need, and this is their natural inclination. But with understanding, it's better, because the understanding understands what is metta, and it's not my kindness or someone's kindness, and understands the difference between, begins to understand the difference between metta, genuine kindness, and moments of attachment. Like someone may think whenever they're kind to their child, it's metta, but what about all the attachment that's there? So without understanding, it cannot be developed, because it cannot be understood what its nature is. But it's true, as you say, there can be metta even without understanding. But without understanding, it's all about this person's kindness or that person's kindness, and the quality isn't understood to be developed.
In Roti, I'm just going to say that some people, we can see that in the world today very often. Many people have developed a lot of, they have accumulated a lot of metta. So there will be conditions for it to arise sometimes, but as Sarah said, it will not necessarily, won't be accompanied by panya, but yeah, there are many kind things that people do. We can see about us in the day-to-day life. It's not uncommon.
And I think what Tadau's point is that it's whatever it comes to, if there's going to be a development of metta, it starts with understanding whatever appears now. So understanding, for metta to develop, it has to be understanding metta, and for understanding metta, it has to start from now.
And it has to be understood as a Dhamma, not my metta, because those who developed samatha bhavana with metta as an object developed very great metta, so great that it became an object of jhana, such great metta, but all taken for my metta. So from the beginning, it has to be understood as a Dhamma that arises and falls away instantly, doesn't belong to me or Ajahn or anyone else.
Yeah, this is what I mentioned once before, which comes from Kunstin's Tai Talk. And she's talking about one foreign monk who was visited by his lay followers. And he was very irritated because it was a time for him to develop metta bhavana. So he wasn't able to develop metta bhavana because of their visit. And that was a very nice anecdote explaining what to metta bhavana is and what is not to metta bhavana is.
It's a good example. I remember someone else talking about going to a temple that was so peaceful and quiet and a good place for her metta practice. And then she'd go out into the traffic in Bangkok and would be so disturbed and irritated by it all. Same kind of thing. No understanding of what metta is, just strong clinging to oneself and one's idea of practice.
A few weeks ago, we also had a discussion with a friend from Australia about metta. I think she is very keen in doing what is called metta meditation. And one of the things she said is that when she recites the words from the Metta Sutta, she thinks that the metta arising and how can I say, like the phrase, may all beings be happy. For example, when she hears those words, the metta arises for all beings. But we learn from the text that there cannot be metta to all beings. For us, that only happens when with the power of metta jhana, with the jhana with metta as a subject. Would you have some further comments on this? Thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think that Tam was referring to you, Thanajankap.
So now, is it time to understand what metta is again and again? Otherwise, it is only thinking about reciting metta. But what about that moment of experiencing and pleasant object? Even at moment of experiencing pleasant object, what is the true metta without understanding about the truth? It's impossible to understand that very moment, whether it's motivated by attachment or clinging to the idea of self, just wanting to have that kind of feeling. But it has to be understanding the moment when it's there by conditions. This is much more better than just I have metta, or I can have more metta, or I can recite the whole sutta of metta. But what about moment of experiencing anything? That is a test, and only Panya can know what is there. Is it really metta or not, or just desire to have it? When we face with any situation, what is the act which is conditioned by metta? They react to the situation and so on. It's time to realize about whether metta is there or not. Metta is different from selfishness. So right understanding is developing to understand what is there in any situation. To let go the idea of self. This is the point of listening to the truth of realities by conditions arising and falling away. Nothing's left, only that which is accumulated from that moment, which has a reason to be conditioned for the next moment, again and again and again. And this is the way metta will arise, because of understanding the truth of whatever is there, the poor or the rich and so on, different. The type of to be hungry or to be full. See, different moment. What about metta? What about the speech in a kind speech? Or not thinking about the person who hear it at all, whether it's he likes it or not, she likes it or not, or is she hurt from that word, and on and on. It's just daily life. And the best thing is that all realities which are unwholesome can be gradually eliminated until it's completely eradicated. And that is the point. Not just having metta only for some time, but what about not anymore? Anger or ill will and so on, stage by stage. That's why usually we think about oneself to solve the problem, to understand this and that. But actually, Buddha enlightened the truth, and it's quite very, very long way to let go that which has been accumulated to arise anytime, 3 moments after seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, to be reminded that that can be understood gradually of its nature when it's there. Otherwise, when we begin to understand the nature of that, which is now appearing. It can be metta or anything, but no word, because it's the experience as an object of its nature. This is the most important, how hard it is, how difficult it is to understand the truth of that which arises to be metta. See, different from moment of having anger, getting angry about all this, someone and so on. So, and Panya is there, ready to understand when it has enough conditions for its arising to understand the truth. So life goes on by conditions, no matter with metta or without metta, with understanding or without understanding. But when it's time to understand the truth, it's the most precious moment in samsara. Otherwise, it cannot begin at all, because not seeing the importance of just understand the characteristic of that which cannot be taken for anything or anyone at all. And now, seeing a door, seeing window, it's something. Even it's not that shape yet to be taken for anything. It's something, see, so very deeply. So it's time to understand the truth, to develop the understanding, to have confidence of the truth. It can be realized because it's so true. It's now this moment, but ignorance cannot understand it at all. So when metta is there any understanding of metta as a reality conditioned to arise at such situation on and on, without anyone do it or make it arise at all, by conditions? This is very important in any situation. What is there is by conditions. So true. Right now, each moment is by conditions. These are conditions accumulated to condition this moment. There cannot be this moment. Like no conditions for an arahata to arise again after death. But now there are conditions for arising next life all the time after death by different conditions. And this moment is now a condition to have more understanding or no interest in understanding the truth of what is there at all. So this moment is very important. From moment to moment, it's there already as condition for the next moment. Or future moments to be such and such without understanding how come, not understanding of from this very moment, each moment. So understanding metta as a reality in itself is the point of listening to the truth. To have more confidence, to be conditions for more confidence, to let go. The idea of something all the time from all khandhas, no matter it's feeling now, sanya now, sankhara dhamma now, vijnana khandha now, all other 5 khandhas. And we talk about 5 khandhas as we know it, but it is a little understanding about the nature of it, but the truth of it hasn't been directly experienced yet. And that can be when time comes, when the conditions are enough to condition an expected moment, not just try and wait and concentrate on it with the idea of self, unknowingly. So it's quite a long, long way in samsara until right understanding is strong enough. And it is developing now, little by little, with this understanding of the truth. And the point of listening to the truth, just to understand. And what comes next by conditions from moment to moment, as usual, thinking about the doctor, the food, and so on, by conditions. Life goes on by conditions. And right understanding is one condition to change from clinging, ignorance, akusla, into seeing the danger of it because of understanding it. So it develops on at any time to be wholesome, naturally.
And if there's no metta now, if there's annoyance or disturbance, it's just the conditioned Dhamma too. So all the wishing to have metta or the reciting of the metta sutta and dreaming about having more metta, actually it's just more ignorance and more attachment that's being accumulated, disguised as thinking that it's metta, but actually not understanding the strong clinging to self. So better to have understanding of annoyance now than just clinging, thinking that one is developing metta when actually it's attachment, because that wrong view and that wrong practice is so dangerous.
Yes, thanks for pointing that out. I think it's really common that many people take what is not metta for metta, like the attachment to certain kinds of thinking or certain kind of feeling, and they think that that is metta.
So much pleasant feeling at the time when reciting, but it's the attachment masquerading as metta, because it's all about clinging to my calmness, my pleasant feeling, my metta, when actually it's just the attachment with pleasant feeling that's being accumulated.
And I think what you referred to as taking what is not metta for metta is driven a lot by the wish to develop metta specifically, rather than recognizing metta when it arises naturally in daily life, because there is bound to be some moments of metta in a day. We think of things like consideration for others and wanting to be helpful or respectful, being respectful, or lots of ordinary, what we might call ordinary mental states may involve metta. So there may be kusala citta with another being as object at those moments. And when there is restraint of speech, for example, or politeness of speech, there is a degree of wishing for the welfare of the other person. And these moments are there, and are the times at which it may be possible for metta to be recognized and known for what is its characteristic. But when there's the wish to develop metta because one thinks it's something that doesn't arise in the normal course, doesn't arise naturally in one's daily life, and that it's such a powerful thing that can be developed to bring these incredible changes to one, then there's bound to be taking what is not metta for metta, because there's the idea of practicing to develop it.
Very true. Yes.
Yeah, well said, Jonathan. There might be a bit of noise in the background here. The builders are here doing some repair work. Yeah, I think it's quite common too, Tam, that people just think by reciting, though, that Karaniya Sutta, that there will be metta. It's not an uncommon thing for people to believe that. Tana Jankup, thank you for being here again today. I have a question about the anagami. In the Rupa Brahma Loka, there are 11 planes. So Tanajan, what I would like to know is, can an anagami, can they be born in the planes of the Rupa Brahma Loka other than the Sudhavasa? So in the Rupa Brahma Loka, we've got 11 planes. 6 of those belong to Rupa Brahma, or they all belong to Rupa Brahma Loka, but people who have developed the first or second or third, sometimes fourth and fifth Rupa jhanas can be born obviously in Rupa Brahma Loka. But an anagami also will be born, excuse me, an anagami will also be born in the Rupa Brahma Loka because they have eradicated the 5 lower samyojana. So what I would like to know is, are all anagami, well, first question, Tanajan, would be, if an anagami has not developed jhana, are they born in Sudhavasa?
Sudhavasa is the plane for anagami who has attained the the stage of jhana, the 5th stage. Only.
Okay. So for an ordinary anagami, if we can use that word ordinary, because they're certainly not ordinary, where is an anagami born who has not developed jhana?
Yes, because no condition to be born in sensuous world anymore.
Correct.
Absolutely. That's why at moment of death or before death, the degree of jhana is there to condition the birth in Brahmaloka.
In Sudhavasa?
No, Sudhavasa is only for anagami who has attained 5th jhana.
Oh,
so the second cannot be born in Sudhavasa.
Yes, that's what I thought I heard you say, Tanajan, but I was just wanting to make...
cannot be born in Sudhavasa too. It has to be anagami with the 5th jhana attained.
Cup. So the other anagami who have not developed jhana, they're born in Rupa Brahma Loka.
Because usually what is the daily life of an anagami? See, no more attachment to sensuous objects. So in a day, what's that? Awesome moment. At what degree? To anything around. No attachment at all until death. And that can be conditioned for the jhana, because even the moment of enlightened sotapanna, without the development of jhana before, is as the 1st jhana.
Cup. So they would be born in either because we've got Brahma Parisajja, which is, or Brahma Parisat, as you say in Thai, and you've got Purohita and Mahabrahma. So and then you've got those other ones, Abhasara and so on. There are 3 others. So anagami who has not developed the 5th jhana, he will either be born in one of those 6. Can you say more about that, Tanajan, or just that's the way it is? It's not particularly important, but I was just curious about it.
What place is for the person who has no attachment to sensuous at all?
Well, it has to be Rupa Brahma Loka.
Mm-hmm. By conditions.
Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. So all we can say probably, Tanajan Cup, is that if you haven't developed the fifth Rupa Jhana, then you will be born in one of the lower, if we can put it that way, one of the lower Rupa Brahma Lokas, one of the 6 lower Rupa Brahma Lokas. What about, because, because there are many in the Sudhavasa, you've got at least 5 planes there. So that again will be dependent on the level of that jhana that's been developed too, I understand, Tanajan.
By conditions, as factor for such and such plane. And thinking, comparing to the person who hasn't been as anagami yet, still have sometimes moment of jhana, so very calm to that degree of 5th jhana and so on, but still have attachment to the sensuous object. See, so it depends on whether the jhana arises before this or not, because usually in daily life, when all akusala are there, not eradicated yet, what about that life? As seeing, hearing, so on.
So
the person who has been anagami just have jhana, still can be born in the Brahmaloka. But what about the unwholesome realities? Anusya is there, ready to arise again from moment of experiencing sensuous when they were born again in the sensuous world. So what about the anagami not having any moment of being attached to sensuous object at all in life as they become anagami? So it's a condition to be born in Brahmaloka, but not to Tangvasa if that person hasn't attained 5th jhana.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thanks, Tanajan.
And on those different Sudhavasa realms, then there may be moving from one to the other, one life to another. So no more rebirth in sensuous realms, but in the Sudhavasas can be born from one Sudhavasa realm to another.
Perhaps one last question, Tanajan Cup. Is it ever possible for an anagami who has developed jhana, say a rupa jhana, to be born in the Rupa Brahma Loka? Impossible.
What condition the birth in Arupa jhana, in Rupa jhana plane?
Well, development of a Rupa jhana, Cup. If for example, an anagami had developed a Rupa jhana, would it be possible for them to be born in the Rupa Brahma Loka?
Is there a condition to be reborn in Arupa jhana, Arupa Brahma world?
There must be, Tanajan, sometimes.
Depends on conditions.
By conditions. So you're saying that it's possible for an anagami to be born in Arupa Brahmaloka?
Why not? Because even the person who are not anagami can be born in Arupa world.
Aha,ครับ
Utakadapa, see, Alaradapa.
But that we know that they were not had not attained any sotapatti or any other level of enlightenment. So they were, and they hadn't heard the Dhamma, the Buddha Dhamma in that life, but they were born in that world, as we know, as you're saying, I presume, Ajahn, because they had cultivated that very, very, very high level of jhana.
By conditions, see, or by conditions.
Hitesh, these are important points to clarify because there's so many misunderstandings that people think that all anagamis must have attained mundane jhanas and all anagamis must be reborn in sort of Vamsa and so on. And as we know, this isn't correct because it can't be said that all anagamis have attained jhanas, but as you say, at moment of enlightenment, the citta is equivalent to that of jhana. There is appana samadhi at those points, depending on level as to whether the attainment was with mundane jhanas as basis. So I've had quite a long discussion with Bhikkhu Bodhi and other bhikkhus on these points, and the common is really important that these points are clarified and that there isn't the idea that all anagamis are reborn in Sudhavamsa and must have attained jhanas.
And can the person who's not anagami attain the jhana, fifth jhana?
Yes.
Yes,
Even that,
of course.
All depends on accumulations and conditions, yes.
Way up pala.
I have a question on this. So the anagami already eradicates clinging to sense objects. So basically, we can think that it would not be difficult for them to develop jhana, because jhana is like also burning away the desire for sense objects. But obviously some anagami don't attain jhana. So does that mean that there needs to be some kind of skills for attaining jhana, not only the being away from sense objects?
Usually, what's the point of jhana, developing jhana?
Is to not experiencing the sense objects anymore.
So what about anagami? Experiences this object without attachment and ignorance of that degree.
So they don't really need to develop jhana anymore unless they already have acquired that skill before, right?
And who knows whether the calmness can reach that degree of what we say jhana.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so
in order to attain jhana, less and less attachment to essential object, nivarana, see? But when there's no attachment to such at all, what in it is? No time for any attachment to sensuous object at all. and at the moment of trying to be calm without the sensuous object, but the attachment to sensuous object hasn't been eradicated yet. And when it's completely, absolutely eradicated, see, do we still to think about jhana? Because what the point of jhana, not to experience the sensuous object with attachment, because they know that as soon as it's there to be the object, ignorance and attachment is there. That's why they try to have the citta without or away from the clinging to the sensuous object. But the anagami absolutely, completely eradicated that sensuous desire or attachment. As people who still have condition for clinging can develop jhana, what about the one who has eradicated all attachment to the sensuous object? Never arise again in life. All day.
Just on this subject, Dhamma Cup, we know that anagami still has very subtle clinging, not to sensuous objects as we understand them, but he or she still has very subtle clinging. Can we say that there must be upadana, there must be still kam upadana there, or would that be the incorrect use of the word kam upadana? Because there must still be upadana.
That's why when we talk about the eradication of akusala, kam upadana can be eradicated when?
Well, normally we understand at the point of anagami, but we know that there is still subtle clinging. So that's my question, Tanajan, because there is still a subtle clinging, not to the sensuous object, but there is still clinging, very subtle. That is my question.
Understand the two meanings of karma, right? Clinging to sensuous object, and karma itself is whatever is object of attachment. That's why anagami doesn't have attachment to sensuous object anymore, but there still is a subtle attachment to being.
So that we can say that's bhavatanha.
No, bhavatanha and vibhavatanha are eradicated by sotapanna, all kind of deity, because actually bhavatanha is the wrong understanding, the thing that everything is permanent.
So they still have very subtle clinging, and so you were saying there are these two aspects of karma or sensuality. One is the gross type that most of us have most of the time to sensuous objects, and then there is the more very subtle type, which is attachment to, can we say attachment to nama?
Yeah, to being.
To being. To bhava. Can we call that? Can we call
still
please go?
Pradana. I was just going to say, so it's still Kamu Pradana because it's still clinging to the object of attachment, no matter how subtle it is.
I don't know, but the Tanajan seemed to say before that that's not Kamupadana. I'm not. Can you help again with that, Tanajan? I thought you said that's not Kamupadana for ananagami.
So does an anagami do not have upadana at all?
Well, that's my question. I imagine that they do, very subtle upadana at the level of bhava, as you suggested, Tanadhanka.
That's why, what are the karma, the meaning of karma?
The meaning of clinging cup.
To what? When we talk about sensuous object only, it is clinging to sensuous object. But it's not only sensuous object which is the object of clinging.
No cup.
That's why we talk about what's meant by karma. The nature of that which is lopa, which clings to any object, and the other is the object which is clung by lopa.
It's very subtle, Tanajan.
Or Dhamma asutato, that's the words of the Buddha himself. So we begin to just see what is the justice that which can be known. The skin, not deep down to the truth which is there, as how subtle is still there, from Sotapanna to Sakatagami, to Sakatagami and to Anagami and to Arahata. Otherwise, there must be Arahata after Sakatagami. But it's more subtle than that.
And when we talk about the asavas, kamasava and bhavasava, the kamasava is referring to the attachment to sense objects. So that is eradicated by the anagami, but there's still bhavasava. But when we talk about kamopadana, it's referring to not just attachment to sense objects, but any attachment to any object, the very fine clinging that the anagami still has. So it's not differentiating, but when we're talking about the asavas, it's differentiating between the clinging that the lower Aryans still have and the subtle clinging that remains for the anagami only.
John, I may have misheard or misunderstood something I thought I heard you say earlier. Does the anagami still have bhavasava? Clinging
for sure.
For sure.
Being.
Yes. Okay, that's what I thought. Then I recall having, so I misheard it then. That's what I thought, that they would still have clinging to being. Okay, thank you.
It's so subtle because after seeing is there. 3 moments after seeing, who knows? All the time seeing followed by attachment to bhava or karma, depending on conditions.
What bhava and karma? Karma, I guess I've thought that perhaps it's more subtle than I have thought.
And I think what you heard earlier, Anne, was when Sundara mentioned about bhava and vibhava tanha, and Ajahn was stressing that bhava and vibhava tanha with wrong view is eradicated by the sotapanna. So this is when there's clinging to the idea of lastingness, of permanence, and clinging to the idea of no more existence at the end of life, no more continuation. So these are kinds of clinging with wrong view.
I see.
that have been eradicated, different from Bhavasava, which is just clinging to being or existence.
Right.
So many details or subtle points.
Yes, but that I actually hadn't thought about clinging to what the wrong view aspect of clinging to a being to being, as opposed
To lastingness, to the idea of permanence.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think, and you can say there's a distinction between being and a being. In the case of Bhava Tanha and it's clinging to, which is eradicated by Sotapati Magga, that's clinging to a being.
Yeah.
A being, yeah.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. I understand that. Thank you.
And why do we learn about this? To understand the subtlety of all kinds of reality. So what we are beginning to learn about it, to understand it, is only the skin of it. Deep down, it's a truth that actually there's nothing left at all. Gone, sunyata and anatta. Otherwise, when this level of understanding is not conditioned to arise, there must be the idea of self, of thing, unknowingly all the time, because of asava and because of anusaya, which condition asava, and stronger kilesa, which can be known later. All other, from moment to moment, just learn to understand what is there when it appears. Even it appears, is there any understanding of it? So what about when it does not appear? Just thinking about it, it cannot be known as when it's there to be known right now. Is that Maswa? See, beginning to understand 3 moments after seeing is there. Bhavasava, still there, Avijjasava, and Tidasava. To understand how deep it is, to really understand the nature which can experience an object, not anyone, just arise to experience an object and then gone. Little by little, until its moment of directly experience its nature, no doubt about that. But that's not enough. There must be stronger understanding of the truth in order to let go the clinging to that which has been accumulated eons and eons. How many years of eons accumulated? That's why it's so natural to begin to understand little by little. And that is the development of parami, conditions for understanding directly the truth of what is heard. When time comes, when conditions are ready, no trouble at all. It cannot be attained by desire, but from moment of understanding, little by little, condition the next one, little by little, on and on and on. So to be truthful to the truth is the most important thing. How much understanding of that which is now appearing. There is memory, sanya. Is it known now? Not at all. As long as that which appears is not known yet. In life, what moment can be moment of thinking or attending to the meaning of sanya? By oneself, by understanding of the truth. What about at moment of thinking? Even the object is not there. This visual object or sounds are not there. But the thinking without sanya, can you think about those experiences in a day? No matter a long time ago or just recently. And even right now, closer to this present moment. Just learn to understand that sanya is there all the time, but when it doesn't appear, how can it be known? So what can be object of understanding to be known? The reality which experiences an object. Otherwise, the I is there all the time, not understanding the nature which experiences now, the moment of seeing. How can it be I? It experiences only that which can be seen. And at moment of hearing, another one. It can experience only sound. So there must be an object of experiencing by the reality which arises to experience. So where is anyone at moment of seeing? Seeing is seeing, hearing is hearing. This is the way to understand the nature which arises and experience, to let go the idea of self who sees, who hears, who thinks, but it's only that which arises and performs its function as seeing, liking, feeling, pleasant or unpleasant, that's all, in a day from life to life. And the akusala, ignorance and attachment arises more in a day, added more wrong understanding. That's why the development of understanding is aman or akusala. So brave to understand the truth, to understand the value, the preciousness of it, that it can condition moment of virya and kanti and nekama and parami. Confidence or podhi Dhamma must be there. It's not just the word, but it's the characteristic of that each one as chanda, the interest to understand the truth. If it's not there, other object is more interesting. That's why beginning to understand the podhi Dhamma, the factors for enlightenment to understand the truth until it is directly experienced. No doubt there, when it is moment of experiencing the truth, no doubt about the reality which just no shape and no form, experiencing the object which is that only one at a time. And the point of listening is to understand the truth of it. While listening, it's so true. When it's so true, it can be directly experienced, but not by I at all, because it's the way to let go the idea of self or I. And the I is not just seeing or hearing. Moment of liking or disliking, pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling, see, anytime is there to be known as it is, when there's more understanding and more bodhi Dhamma, dhammas which are the factor of enlightenment, developed gradually. So natural, or are unexpected. Even just next moment is also unexpectedly arising and gone instantly all the time. So there must be sanya at any moment of experiencing an object or at moment of whatever appears as the object, not understand that which experiences it yet, because the object is experienced. So attention to that which is experienced as something all day, all the time. Only when time comes, understanding the truth of it, little by little, it will begin to condition moment of directly understand that which appears as usual, little by little, to know that actually it cannot be, no one can make it arise because actually there's no one. So the understanding of the truth is the only reality which can let go wrong understanding. But it needs other supports too. That's why I learn to understand each different one as not the same one at all. Sati is not panya, and sanya is not sati. And Vedana is there all the time too. But when it does not appear, it's there unknown. But when it's there, what about the understanding of that characteristic as just a reality, conditioned to arise to be such, and then gone? Nothing can be done because there's no one, only conditioned. As long as there are conditions for whatever arises, it has to arise. This is the way to let go the idea of I can do. I can have metta and I can develop metta. No I. It's only desire and attachment for something which no one can make it arise at all. Or by conditions appearing and disappear. From nothing to be something and then nothing again. I remember Kun Glenn's word, Kun Ann. Nothing and something and nothing.
Yes. Yes, I remember him saying that as well.
What word which is true is the words of the Buddha. Just to understand the absolute truth, to have more confidence of the truth, in order to have less clinging to the idea of self, by conditions so much in a day of whatever appears. And right understanding conditions all kinds of parami. So natural by pakatu panisya, natural decisive conditions. So the words from the Buddha can condition moment of understanding what is there in life from moment to moment. Even the way Pajaya is. The Sahajata Pajaya, the Anantara Pajaya, Nati Pachaya, Ati Pachaya, just what is there as it is. We learn about the truth without using any term for Pachaya. But when there is the understanding, no doubt about what Pachaya Buddha taught about. Because of understanding the truth of it. Citta and Cetasika arise together by way of Sahajata Pachaya. Arising together, condition each one. To arise together by Pachaya, no one can change it, no one can make it different, because it is that particular Pachaya. We talk about Citta and Aramana, and Aramana is one Pachaya, because without it, Citta cannot arise at all, but only by way of being Aramana. Only at moment when it's experienced. To understand more and more, whatever arises must be by conditions, and right understanding conditions more wholesomeness. Metta and so on, Khanti and so on, Hiri and Ottappa. Being ashamed not to understand what is there, because it can be understood. But Hiri does not arise to be ashamed of it, not to understanding it. But when it's Hirika, it sees that it can be understood and it should be understood, because it's only the reality which is there to be studied, to be known. That's why each word for the Buddha, of the Buddha conditioned the understanding of what is meant by Hiri and what is meant by Ottappa, not just reciting the word like blessings. See what is meant when it's blessing, and what the end, and what is the beginning of the blessing. And this is meant by studying to understand the truth, realizing by the Buddha. By the accumulation of parami to understand the truth, which is now but not is known because of ignorance, not understanding anything at all. Even ignorance is there now at moment of not understanding the truth. And where is Hiri and Ottappa? Listen more, consider more, for understanding to develop more, to have firm confidence of the truth. Without parami, right understanding cannot develop to the degree that it can realize the truth directly of whatever is there by conditions. So we can talk about anything because Buddha taught about the truth of it to be strong, firm.
Ajahn, I have a question about accumulations. Accumulation, every being seemingly has a different collection of accumulations, but accumulations, like last week, I think we talked about vasana, and I take it that the vasana is sort of the accumulation of, or the manifestation of the way we behave. But the other accumulation I'm thinking of is also the accumulation of jeta seekers that seemingly make us what we are. And because there were some issues with family members over the weekend, and it's not very pleasant. And I was thinking about our various accumulations. And I thought that if there is really good understanding that each one of us has accumulations for doing things, for thinking certain ways, for behaving certain ways, then there would be more, like we said before, more metta for people who are obviously not in a very good space. So back to the question. So accumulations, as I understand it, they are just the accumulations of jeta seekers. Is that correct, Ajahn?
With what, please?
What was that, Ajahn?
What did you say just a moment ago?
Well, the accumulations, as I understand, are just the jeta seekers that have been accumulated in various degrees in the different beings around.
Do people sit differently? What is your more comfortable posture? Why is comfortable?
Wriggling around, Ajahn. But yes, I'm always restless. So, but yes, some people can sit quietly for quite a long time. I mean, we all have different ways of sitting. We all have different ways of doing most things.
Is there any condition for such action or deeds at all?
Well, I think that's what accumulation means. We've learned, well, I'll just go for this lifetime. Over this lifetime, we've learned certain ways of doing things, of how we behave. And I presume that those accumulations will continue on in future lives. Given the conditions, there may be a whole different set of conditions, and there will be different accumulations collected.
If there's no condition for such moment, can it be there like that?
If there's no conditions, no, then obviously there can't be.
But who can understand condition for each moment now?
Oh dear, and I would say the Buddha could understand. I certainly can't.
So it's time to consider what appears as different ways or different manners by conditions too, right?
Yes, right. It seems to have become more obvious the older I get. I can look back and see how I've done similar things throughout this life, this existence. And I'm taking it that that's what accumulations are. I mean, sometimes I think,
that's right.
I wish I could do something different, but it always turns out that it's kind of the same way.
Yes, because the idea of I, right?
Yes.
Is that?
Yes, it's a kind of like, I wish I could do better.
Conditioned, even that moment, even
right.
Thinking like that, all by conditions.
Right.
And whether it can be changed or not, by condition too, depends on conditions only, whatever is there.
Right.
And there are many, many conditions for just a moment of reality to arise. If there's no thought about changing at all, can it develop to change little by little?
Well, I guess if there's no thinking about it, well, my thought is if there's a developing understanding, then that desire to change will maybe lessen, and that maybe there's more patience for other people's behavior.
Before thinking like this, is that thinking like this before, just a moment before it's arising?
No.
Without condition, can it think like that?
No, Ajahn.
So no matter the moment of thinking, it actually pops up unknowingly about its conditions at all. That's why the moment when it arises, it's not known, because it already is there. But in truth, there must be the arising of that reality so it can be experienced. Who make it arise?
Nobody can make it arise. It arises because, as you say, it arises because of conditions and gone again.
And this is the understanding of the way conditions is there at any moment of what arises. To be understood and more confidence of the truth in order to let go the idea of self or I can do, or it's I who knows or I who sees. The see is gone, so where's the I who see?
Well, the moment of seeing goes, it's just goes and goes, arises and goes, arises and goes. Every moment arises and is gone.
And what is there when there's no understanding? What is it? Something or I?
Oh,
right?
Definitely something that I can do, something, it's me, I can do this, I can do that, or I'm not happy with that person's behavior. So then sometimes arguments result. So, yeah.
And even just that which is seen is something, right?
Right, Ajahn, yes, instantly.
So actually it's nothing, unknown. See, so the idea of self or thing keeps on and on and on when there's ignorance and attachment instantly of that which appears. When there's no understanding who else, which is seen or which sees, no one there. So the seeing there is me. And what is there is something because it's there. Right or wrong?
Yes, Ajahn, correct.
In truth. So there can be the development of understanding the truth until it can directly experience as what we have learned about it. That is not just a word, but it's a moment of experiencing the truth. But not I can experience or I am experiencing. The reality which understands that moment as it is, as no one and no thing. This is such a parami, understanding the truth, never change the truth. Be truthful to the truth to understand the truth. Because the truth can be directly experienced because it's so true. What else can be directly experienced when it's not there? And this is right understanding implanted from moment of understanding, no one, no thing at all, little by little, until it grows or develops to the moment of experiencing the truth of it directly. Now, solidity or hardness is there experienced, but not the truth of it.
No, it's very fast. hardness just instantly, it's the table, visible object, it's instantly something. So
So Buddha thought about one moment at a time to experience that as not yet a table, unknown, because so very rapidly what is known is just the form, the mark, the sign of it, to be remembered as what is that, as it is, even no words spoken out at all. But the thinking is there, taking it for that which is remembered by shape and form, to be known as something. That's why taking it for something is panyati, make it known as something by the nature of that which is a sign or mark of that which is not there, but the arising and falling away of that same quality is there to be known as something without understanding. It's not anything. It's there when it's seen and no more when it's not seen. But sanya, vipalasa, as something permanent. Atta sanya, nitya sanya, sukha sanya.
Kokunmaka. Very good. The Zoom is so good.
It takes time. That's all.